Let me ask you a question that might sound simple, but it is actually the most dangerous question in the history of physics. If I lock you in a room where the temperature is perfectly constant, let's say a comfortable 25 degrees Celsius, and I give you all the tools, all the gears, all the magnets, and all the cleverness in the world, can you build a machine that generates work? Can you lift a tiny weight? Can you light a single light bulb? Your intuition, that gut feeling that tells you are clever, says yes. You look at the air around you, and you know it is filled with energy. The molecules of oxygen and nitrogen are flying around at 500 meters per second, banging into the walls, banging into your skin. There is a storm of kinetic energy right in front of your nose. It feels like a free lunch. You think, if I can just catch that motion, if I can just organize it, I can make a perpetual motion machine. I am here to tell you that you are wrong. In fact, you are catastrophically wrong. Your intuition is deceiving you because you are a giant biology machine living in a macroscopic world, blind to the violent reality of the atomic scale. You think you can steal energy from the heat of the air? I have designed a machine, a beautiful, simple machine. That proves you cannot. It is called the RATCHET and pawl. And this machine is going to break your heart because it tells you that nature is not a bank you can rob. It is a casino, and the house always wins. Let's look at this device. I want you to visualize it. It is a simple mechanical idea, the kind of thing you see in a clock or a winch. We have a shaft with vanes on it, paddles sitting in a box of gas. The gas molecules hit the paddles, banging them this way and that. Now, to make this turn into useful work, we need it to turn only one way, right? If it just jiggles back and forth, we get nowhere. So, on the other end of the shaft, we put a toothed gear, a ratchet. And resting against that gear is a little lever, a pawl, pushed down by a spring. The idea is elegant. It is seductive. When the vanes get hit by a molecule and try to turn the forward way, the slanted teeth lift the pawl. It clicks over, and the spring snaps it down. Caught, we have captured a step. But if the vanes get hit the other way, the vertical edge of the tooth hits the pawl, and it locks. It cannot move back. This is the metaphor we tell ourselves, the one-way street. We think we can build a mechanical demon that acts like a traffic cop, allowing order to pass but stopping chaos. You look at this drawing in a textbook, and it looks solid, rigid, perfect. But this mechanical model is a lie. It assumes that the laws of mechanics that apply to bridges and cars also apply to atoms. They do not. You are using a macroscopic metaphor to describe a microscopic reality. And that is where the swindle happened. Step 3, micro-experiment of cognitive mechanism. I want you to shrink down. No, really do this. Close your eyes and imagine you are shrinking, smaller than a dust mite, smaller than a bacteria. You are standing on the surface of one of these brass gear teeth. What do you see? What do you feel? First, the surface isn't smooth. It's a jagged landscape of copper and zinc mountains, atoms vibrating furiously. But look at the air around you. It's terrifying. Gas molecules are bombarding the paddle like artillery shells. Bam, bam, bam. The wheel wants to turn. Now, look at the pole, that little lever that is supposed to stop the wheel from turning backward. In your mind, it's a solid bar of steel, isn't it? A rigid wall. But down here, it is not a wall. It is a swarm of atoms. And here is the thing you forgot. If the gas is warm, the pawl is warm. It has the same temperature. That means the atoms in the pawl are also vibrating. They are shaking with thermal energy. The spring pushing it down, it's shaking too. This is Brownian motion. The pawl isn't sitting still waiting to catch a tooth. It is dancing. It is jittering. It is bouncing up and down on its pivot like a nervous child. Can you feel the chaos? There is no stillness here. The very mechanism you built to stop the motion is itself in violent motion. You thought you were building a trap for the gas molecules, but your trap is made of the same stuff as the prey. This isn't just an engineering problem. It's a fundamental reality of matter. The lock is vibrating. just as much as the key. Step 4, epistemic paradigm shift. We need to change how we define working. In classical mechanics, we say a machine works if forces balance out. But here, we must switch to operationalism. We can't ask what the pawl shui. We must ask what the pawl shui does over time. We have to stop thinking in terms of rigid geometry and start thinking in terms of probability. Physics at this scale is not about certainty. It is about odds. What are the odds that the pawl is down at the exact moment a molecule hits the paddle backward? What are the odds that the pawl accidentally bounces up due to its own heat, just as the wheel wants to slip? This is the shift. The pawl is not a physical barrier. It is an energy barrier. To lift the pawl takes energy. Where does that energy come from? It comes from the random thermal kicks of the atoms making up the pawl itself. We are moving from a world of levers to a world of Boltzmann statistics. The question isn't, is the door locked? The question is, how often does the door unlock itself? Step 5, ontological correction, the container fallacy. Here lies the container fallacy. You imagine the machine exists, the Intuania background, distinct from the environment. You think the gas is the fuel and the ratchet is the engine. But if they are at the same temperature, they are the funchor, Sami thing. They are in thermal equilibrium. The pawl is not an external observer or a master of the system. It is a victim of the system. It extracts energy from the heat bath just to wiggle. If the gas is at temperature T, the ratchet and pawl are also at temperature T. This means the average kinetic energy of the parts of your machine is exactly the same as the average kinetic energy of the gas molecules. You haven't built a machine. You've just added more furniture to the heat bath. The chaos you are trying to harvest is infecting the harvester. You cannot separate the observer from the noise when the observer is made of noise. Step 6, dimensional trade-off analogy. Let's play this out in slow motion. This is the heart of the paradox. Imagine the moment of action. A big molecule hits the vane forward. The wheel turns. The sloping edge of the gear tooth pushes the pawl up. This takes work. The kinetic energy of the gas is converted into potential energy in the spring. Click, the pawl snaps down. We gained a step. Success. But wait, look at the reverse. The wheel is trying to turn backward because of random collisions. The vertical edge of the tooth hits the pawl. It should stop. But remember, the pawl is hot. It is undergoing Brownian fluctuations. Every once in a while, rarely but predictably, the pawl will gather enough thermal energy from its own internal jiggling to kick itself up against the spring. It lifts just high enough, purely by accident. And what happens at that exact moment? The wheel, being bombarded by gas, slips backward. Clunk, you lost a step. So we have two competing processes. Process A, the gas pushes the wheel forward, doing work to lift the pawl. Process B, the pawl lifts itself due to thermal noise, allowing the wheel to slip backward. In a world of friction and heavy oil, process B is negligible. But we are talking about a perpetual motion machine, a machine that must work with tiny amounts of energy. At that scale, the energy required to lift the pawl is comparable to the thermal energy, kT. The lighter the pawl to catch small collisions, the easier it is for thermal noise to lift it. You cannot win. If you make the pawl heavy to stop the bouncing, the gas isn't strong enough to lift it forward. If you make it light enough to turn, it is light enough to bounce out of the way. Let's push this to the limit. Let's do the math without the chalkboard. According to Boltzmann's law, the probability of a system having energy E is proportional to EETT. The energy required to lift the pawl is epsilon. So the probability of the pawl being up by accident is determined by the temperature. Calculations show us something absolutely devastating. If the temperature of the gas driving the vanes and the temperature of the ratchet, the locking mechanism, are the same T1 equals T2, then the rate of forward steps is exactly equal to the rate of backward slips. Not approximately, exactly. For every step you think you gained by harvesting heat, you lose a step because your harvester malfunctioned due to that same heat. The wheel jiggles back and forth, vibrating wildly. But on average, it does not turn. It does not lift the weight. The network is zero. This is why you cannot power a ship using the heat of the ocean water it floats in. If everything is the same temperature, the chaos is perfectly symmetrical. You are dead in the water. This brings us to the concept of entropy. But let's strip away the mystery. Entropy is just a measure of how many ways you can arrange the cards in the deck without anyone noticing the difference. When your machine is at the same temperature as the air, it is in a state of maximum probability. There is no direction. Think about a movie of this ratchet. If I play the movie backward, what do you see? You see the wheel jiggling, you see the pawl bouncing. It looks exactly the same as the movie played forward. The physics is reversible, but work, useful work, like lifting a weight, is directional. It requires a history. It requires a before and an after. In thermal equilibrium, time has no arrow. The ratchet clicking forward is just a fluctuation. The ratchet slipping back is just another fluctuation. Nature doesn't care which one happens. To get work, to get a flow, we need to break this symmetry. We need to introduce a bias. We need a reason for the wheel to prefer one direction over the other. And mere mechanics cannot provide that bias. Only a difference in the statistical spread of energy can do that. You need a gradient. So, is the machine useless? No. And this is the brilliant twist. The machine works perfectly well if, and only if, we break the temperature symmetry. Imagine we heat the gas around the vanes to a blistering temperature, T1. But we keep the ratchet and pawl cool at T2. Now, the bombardment on the vanes is violent. The kicks forward are incredibly strong. But the pawl is cold. It is shivering, not dancing. It stays down. The forward kicks are strong enough to overcome the spring. But the backward slips are rare because the cold pawl doesn't bounce as much. Suddenly, the wheel turns. We are making energy. But notice what is happening. We are not creating energy from nothing. We are taking heat from the hot side and dumping it into the cold side. The wheel only turns because heat is flowing from T1 to T2. The moment T1 cools down or T2 heats up, and they match, the machine stops. This reveals that useful work is actually just a byproduct of heat transfer. You aren't generating power. You are riding the avalanche of entropy as heat falls from a high place to a low place. No temperature difference, no avalanche, no work. This leads us to a view of the universe that is somewhat terrifying. The universe is essentially a giant version of this ratchet. Every star, every engine, every burning match is just a pocket of high temperature trying to equalize with the cold void. The flow of time you perceive, the very fact that things happen, is simply the universe sliding down the probability curve. We are living in the transient phase, where things are still mixing. If the universe ever reaches thermal equilibrium, the heat death, then the ratchet stops. The pole will bounce just as often as the vanes push. The wheel of the universe will jitter eternally, but it will never turn again. Nothing will happen, no thought, no movement, no life, just an eternal, vibrating static. Existence without events, that is the destination of the block universe. We are just lucky to be alive during the slide down. Step 11, determinism and will, the biological connection. Now, look at yourself, look at your hand, flex your fingers. Do you know what just happened? Millions of tiny molecular ratchets inside your muscle cells, called myosin and kinesin, just marched along tracks of protein. These molecular motors are exactly like my ratchet and pawl. They are bombarded by the thermal storm of your body water. They should be slipping back and forth uselessly, but they don't. Why? Because you are burning fuel. You are consuming ATP. The chemical reaction of ATP keeps the vanes hot, effectively, while the environment stays cold. You are not a solid object. You are a collection of trillions of tiny ratchets, all frantically rectifying the thermal noise, turning chaos into order, by burning chemical energy to stay out of equilibrium. You are a structure that exists only because you are constantly consuming low entropy fuel and excreting high entropy heat. Step 12, reflection on linguistic and cognitive limits. We use words like life, purpose, and will, but physics sees something else. Physics sees a dissipative structure. We are mechanisms that nature invented to help it reach equilibrium faster. It is humbling, isn't it? We think we are special. We think we are the masters of our domain. But we are essentially just complicated versions of this brass gear, twitching in a thermal bath, desperate to keep our T1 different from our T2. Our language fails to capture the sheer precariousness of this situation. We say, I am hungry, but we should say, my statistical probability gradient is flattening, and I need to ingest low entropy matter to reset the ratchet. We are caught in a translation problem between the cold, hard statistics of the universe and the warm, illusionary narrative of our consciousness. The ratchet doesn't care about your dreams. It only cares about the temperature. Step 13, open-ended revelation and sublimation. So, the perpetual motion machine is a myth. You cannot get something for nothing. But look at what we found instead. We found the secret of life. Life is the ability to maintain a difference, to stay hot in a cold world, to keep the pole cold while the veins are hot. The moment you stop fighting the equilibrium, the moment you let your temperature match the room, the ratchet slips back. That is death. So, don't be sad that the machine doesn't work for free. Be amazed that it works at all. Be amazed that out of the chaos of crashing atoms, we can carve out a direction, however temporary. Keep your temperature up. Keep your ratchet turning. Because you are the machine, and you haven't cooled down yet.